Do we want to do our, like, hi, how you doing banter on the recording? Or do we want to just actually check in with each other?
Is there anything you want to check in off the record?
Like, I got a really tall T today, but that can go on the record if you want.
Nice. I was already recording.
Yeah, no, me too.
Okay. So
I'm like, just in case there's some kind of gem that comes up that we need to make into the cold open, it'll be there.
That was a beautiful, uncut gem.
So, a rock. It was a rock.
Well, uncut gems are still gems.
Yeah, but they look like rocks.
And cut gems are still rocks.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna call them rocks at that point.
They literally do.
Usage.
They literally do.
They do. Look at the rock on that one.
Exactly.
Welcome to the Hamsteak Podcast, where we read Homestuck and tell you about it.
My name's Alex, and I haven't read Homestuck before.
My name's Lydia, and I'm still gonna say I super have, even though at this point, I don't remember half this shit.
We actually have a question pertaining to that later, but let's start with the recap of what we read this week.
Awesome. Like the recap of what we read this week? You mean like the body of the podcast?
The body of the... Yes.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go. This one's kind of a bummer.
So Homestuck is a comic about 16 kids.
Oh, God.
So we start this week with Tavros, and he is going into a flashback about the time that he LARPed and had the accident. Yep.
Because of course, if a character has a disability, they have to have that disability due to a horrendous accident, and it has to be a major plot point, right? Because people don't just, like, have lives, right? Outside of their
To be fair, the suburb players don't have lives outside of their courses of life.
They don't have lives outside of their lives.
They're predetermined actions.
Like, I guess, but like that doesn't change the fact that this is lazy writing.
Sure.
Like super lazy writing and like kind of like super undignified like handling of a guy who has a disability.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Anyway, but we're going to tell you how it happened anyway. We're going to find out.
So he starts out in his room, and it is much neater than it is when we see him with his wheelchair, I guess because he just hasn't been tidying up recently.
I think the implication is meant to be that he spends a lot more time hanging out in his room and, like, playing, like, Fight-a-Spawn, like, games that, like, clutter it up, as opposed to, like, when he was flarping, he would, like, still played a ton of games all the time, but he would be, like, outside.
Right, I see. So it's not LARPing, it is flarping, which is considered a good name as opposed to scrub.
Yep.
So the way that this game works is the grub, because obviously a game comes on a grub. It lays some eggs, and those hatch into these pixel bats, which kind of act as the agents of the game mechanics.
They're super cute. I love them.
So, for example, the player gets a stat bat, which is really cute, and it just like displays the like your statistics and stuff.
Yeah.
But basically, this game has two teams of two players. One player is the Clouder, who colludes with the bats to set up obstacles and enemies and encounters for the other team's players. Is the other player the Scourge?
No, so there's two teams, and in this, like in Tavros's game, the teams are named Team Scourge and Team Charge. So Tavros plays with Aradia, is his teammate. And right. Team Scourge is Terezi and Arachnid's Grip, who I'm going to call Spider-Girl for now because that's a lot easier to say and clearer than trying to say AG. And so that's our teams. Team Scourge, the Scourge sisters is Terezi and Spider-Girl, and then Team Charge is Tavros and Aradia. And there's gaming flapstractions, and Tavros's Clowder is his teammate Aradia, whose job is to come up with like the challenges. She manipulates the bats to like create the quests and the monster challenges for the other team, and then corresponding what?
Also, she is like friendly and emotive in the past.
Yeah, she's like super sweet and charming and lovely.
Yeah.
Maybe not like charming deliberately, but she's just like, I am charmed by her. She's a sweet character. So Tavros's corresponding Clowder on the other team is Spider-Girl, which proves to be really bad.
Yeah.
It's like
so
real bad.
Yeah, so she kind of backs him with some monsters onto the edge of the cliff that he lives near.
Right. And to be fair, before we go into this, it is mentioned, Aradia points out to him, like, wow, Tavros, you chose a really difficult class.
You won't get any good abilities until you level up a lot.
Right. So Tavros is about to try and contact Spider-Gal and be like, hey, I think these monsters are too hard, like, this doesn't seem appropriate for where we are in the game, and there's, like, she's manipulating that gray area of, like, he kind of chose a bad class, so it's not like she's just completely backing him against the wall, but she's basically backing him against a wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then she actually,
So what happens is, he tries to reach out to his other teammates, who, she trolls him some, for not wanting to engage in combat or flee. Like, he feels very trapped, because if he flees the teams will lose the game, and that should have some bad consequences too, because this is real-life role-playing. And so he tries to contact Terezi and Aradia as well, and they don't answer him, so he's alone now with Spider-Girl. And he's saying, I've looked at the numbers, like, my stats and this monster's stats, and, like, it's a literal physical monster in front of him. But he also can see its stats, and so he's looking at the numbers, and he's like, I can't roll. She's like, you have to roll. He's like, I can't, there's no conceivable way to win. And she uses that as, like, oh, you're breaking the rules, to justify mind controlling him. Yeah,
so,
which is also
so
the
rules say you can't use, like, powers that aren't from the game, like your own powers as a troll that you have. But she mind controls him. She, like, kind of worms into his subconscious and, like, preys on his insecurities, and then jumps him off the cliff.
Yep. Just flings him right off.
Mm-hmm. Which is really mean, because she's like, oh, you're dressed up as Pupa Pan. You want to be Peter Pan. You want to fly. Let's fly.
Fly, Pupa, fly is a line that's going to come back to bite us all in the ass later.
Yeah.
So she flings him off the cliff, and which is handled as, like, a funny gag. Like, it's in the sketchy, goofy gag panel art style. Right.
But then the ensuing panels are not.
Yeah, he, like, almost dies, and
It's a steep fall.
It's a steep fall. So, like, and here's a weird thing. I don't think Hussey literally bothered to learn anything about how, like, paralysis actually works, because you see Tavros, like, texting Carcat at the bottom of this clip. This cliff. And it's like, my dude, he's like, my legs feel like they're not there anymore. And I'm like, if you are so severely injured that you're paralyzed, I'm pretty sure you're, like, in shock. Like, you probably, maybe, because I'm sure someone out there somewhere, I guess, has had some kind of weird experience where this happened to them. But, like, probably I'm pretty sure that's, like, you'd have a bunch of other really severe injuries and you would be passed out and in really bad shock and not lucid at all.
Well, trolls work differently.
Like, they do, but not when you're lazy. I get annoyed, because he works really hard at making sure some of this stuff, like, fits together, and then there's other stuff that he's just, like, lazy about, and it's annoying. Yeah. That's just my pet peeve. I'm always going to complain about it when it happens.
Yeah.
Alex is like, and I will tolerate it.
No, it's good to call this stuff out constantly. Like, we need to keep him in line.
Yeah.
Because Hussey pays attention to our critique. definitely.
He's definitely listening right now. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Drew. Hey, Big D.
That's not...
So Tavros texts Karkat about, like, his legs. And then Karkat's like, hey, asshole, stop playing games for girls, and hangs up.
Which also doesn't make any sense, because I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but it's not really it's not really a spoiler, it's just a thing we haven't learned yet, which is that, like, gender for trolls is super arbitrary because of, like the way that they reproduce and everything, like, nobody's anatomy makes any difference in terms of how they reproduce, so, like, there's no reason for genders to, like, have emerged at all, and then there are genders, so, like, that's fine, or whatever, but then, like, as we will also learn, like, their society has no real notion of, like, sex discrimination more generally, so, like, Karkat is a very isolated instance of, like, making a sexist joke ever.
Right.
Because none of the other characters, well, Robot Guy is super gross and sexist, but everybody else is pretty much just, like, they don't, like, gender isn't really a thing for them, like, it never really comes up. So, at least in terms of how they treat other people. People express gender in all different kinds of ways, but...
Right.
Anyway, laziness.
Yeah.
And then we flash back to the future, I think, right?
We do. This is when Karkat is in the medium.
Right.
Where AG, Spider-Girl, asks to join his team. He says no, because she sucks.
Yeah.
She says, oh, well, I can, like, mind control you anytime. I just don't want to, because your mind is, like, gross and full of garbage.
Yeah, she's like, it would be like trawling through a dumpster.
Which is fair enough. Like, I probably wouldn't want to go into Karkat's mind either.
No, he really
Seems
has
like a lot of
baggage.
Yeah.
And, like, trashy rom-coms, remember? So, I like, at one point, he calls her out, and, she says something to him, and he goes, oh, really? With a bunch of question marks, and then he says, wait, let me count out 8 of these things, hold on, and then he meticulously types 8 question marks. There, I am now an enormous tool forever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of psychology here going on. So, Karkat calls out, Spider-Gal for, he knows that she resents Terezi, because Terezi is really good at manipulating people as well, but doesn't, like, have mind control, doesn't lean on it. And apparently there's a truce, there's mention of a truce, which should force Spider-Gal not to mind control anyone on his team, which she promptly breaks, because Karkat's insisting you can't mind control me, and he signs off. And then she makes him sign back on. Yeah.
This is a guy that keeps coming back here in this reading of people signing off and then signing back on again immediately.
Yeah. Oh man, that, like, the dynamics of, like, people signing off and signing on again, and, like the conversational pragmatics of that are played for, will continue to be played for humor in increasingly complex ways later on, and I'm excited.
Which is another cool thing about, like, this medium that can't be duplicated elsewhere.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot less funny when we're just telling you about it, too. Like, it really is very, like, text native, but it's a good joke, like, I promise.
Yeah. So then the action text is be the other asshole, and then the next panel is CTE, Centaur Testicle.
Oh my god.
And the text is like, actually, let's, like, leave him for last. Please be anyone else.
But, okay, so we get a view of his room, right? And
yeah.
Yeah. So, where to start?
Well, he has many posters and paintings of muscle-bound centaurs with... and
just, like, anthro, like, furry horses.
Yeah, who are muscle-bound. And with all with pixelated junk areas.
Yeah, the jungle area is pixelated for the user's benefit, the reader's benefit, but we are informed in no uncertain terms that they are, in fact, nude portraits, which are supposed to be a very, well, we'll learn more about that when we actually meet this guy. But so we got naked-ass muscle horses, we got a million, like, busted robots.
Right, yeah.
We got like a shorts and a tank top and socks, like real high socks with sneakers look, which is super bad.
Right. I should mention all the robots are like troll child sized, kind of like Jadebot.
Yeah, they're his size.
Yeah.
And then there's his Lucis, who is like a smallish centaur, and he has a mustache and a black eye.
I thought that was a monocle.
No, he has a mustache.
Like an organic monocle.
No,
like
that's a black
around his eye. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a flesh monocle.
I think he also has a flesh monocle, but he definitely has a black eye. I think,
Great.
which we will also learn about later, why he's all bruised all the time.
Yeah. And he also has an udder.
He also has udders, which we'll also learn about later. Then the narrator is so eager for us not to look at this guy any longer that we get an explicitly vague teaser of the final unseen troll, who is underwater with a big golden trident, hunting down a cuttlefish.
Mm-hmm. And we see an extreme close-up of her face. Like, we see her eyes and nose, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the top of her smile, which is really big. And her eyes are just kind of, like, gazing up full of wonder. It's cute.
She's a very happy, cute person. She's got, like, a tiara with the Pisces symbol. She's got a magenta color scheme going on.
Mm-hmm.
I like this character.
Nice.
I'm excited to meet her.
Cool, yeah, she seems cool. From this teaser.
Yeah.
So now Ariana Grande? Is it Aridia?
Yes.
Okay. Aridia's going back home to her hive. She's telekinetically riding the giant stone frog head.
She's telekinetically riding, the big giant stone frog head. Sorry, finish.
That's it.
From the ruins, right. Okay, so I just realized what this reminded me of, because it reminded me of something and I wasn't sure what, and it's SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh my god.
Do you remember?
Yes.
The stupid episode where they're delivering the pizzas and then they get stranded, and then they're like, they find it. SpongeBob's like, we have to find a rock to get home. And
a boulder.
Like, a boulder! And the pioneers used to ride these babies for miles, and Squidward's, like, not having it. And they get on this rock, and it, like, zooms away for, like, no reason.
Yeah.
And it looks like that! It's, like, the same general shape and color and size.
You're right. That's really funny. She returns home. She hasn't been here in a while.
No.
She returns hive. So her hive is just kind of some rubble on the ground, overgrown with vines.
Yeah.
Surrounded by these kind of experimental archaeological dig pits that she's done.
Yeah.
And we're told that she left her Lucis's corpse behind here, and that it was wasn't buried, it was left for the wild animals in the Alternian way.
Right.
Which means that she does not have her Lucis around for prototyping.
Right. So she is about to enter the medium, and she's mulling over all of the plots that she's aware of, and how she's fully aware that CT is about to pull off a power grab. She knows that her quote-unquote co-leader is about to pull a fast one, and doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because that's, she wants to enter second. That's actually kind of all according to plan or predestiny or whatever. And
the voices, yeah.
The voices. And she also alludes to the fact that blue bloods do, as you say, like, subterfuge is what blue bloods do best, and it super is, and that's going to play out more just this week.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's no Lucis, so she prototypes with the frog head.
Right. Yeah, she just kind of, like, dumps it in.
Yep.
And it's very big, and it's very funny.
Yeah.
We
find out... Yeah.
Her server player is Nepeta, who is watching this all unfold on her screen, and she's confused because she doesn't really understand what's going on with the game. But more confusing is the fact that she can't see Aradia. she sees the frog head be lifted up and enter the Colonel Sprite. But she doesn't see what happened until Aradia prototypes herself because she is dead.
Yep, she's been dead all along, which she confides in Nepeta, and which Nepeta like very gracefully accepts. Like, yeah, no, I'm not going to tell anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to take a second, to run down the teams, and then we're going to talk about Aradia's land, and then we'll keep going.
Cool.
Okay, so the teams, because I keep getting confused by this. I was terribly confused by this while I was reading, and I have the luxury of reading the wiki, which, if all of you are trying not to spoil yourselves, you don't. So whatever. The red team members, there's 6 and 6. Red team is Karkat, Terezi, Tavros, Gamzee, Grim Auxiliatrix, who is our friend with the chainsaw, and Spider-Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then the blue team is Centaur's Testicle. He's our robot guy. Aradia, Nepeta, Solix, and 2 trolls we don't know yet.
The pinstriped one and the underwater one.
Yep. Precisely. So those are our teams, and then we get to see Aradia's land, which is the land of quartz and melody, and it's one of the prettiest lands, but also very, very sort of hostile. It's pretty in the way that like Antarctica is pretty, kind of.
Yeah, it looks very like sparse and like, yeah, I think Antarctica is a good analogy.
It looks like a fantasy afterlife, but like not a fun one.
Mm-hmm. It's very like misty, and it like fades into the background.
Right.
And it's kind of like this, like, yeah, it kind of looks like dark blue ice almost, the quartz.
Yeah. Her title is the Maid of Time, like M-A-I-D.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it so far. The narration points out that repeatedly, like, kind of bashes you over the head with the fact that it was apparently supposed to be very obvious that Aradia was in fact a ghost the whole time. With the whole, she's been able to hear the dead.
A ghost? Was she a ghost? I thought she was like an animated corpse, like a zombie.
No, that's why they keep saying, like, she was dead, like a ghost. And then, like, a page later, Nepeta is like, you were dead? Like a ghost? Or no, she was like, you were dead? And Aradia says, like a ghost. But the point is she's a ghost.
Okay. Or she was. Now she's
Now she's her own sprite, which seems weird. Seems like that's going to make things interesting for her to play.
Well, after Dave's sprite, I'm not surprised.
Like, yeah, but, like, I mean, it's one thing to have someone around who is, like, yourself and a sprite, but it's another thing to, like, how can you be the player and the sprite at the same time? Like, how does that...
Ain't no rule says a dog can't be the sprite.
Like, yeah, but, like, again, like, it's less weird to have a dog be the sprite than to have yourself.
Yeah, but ain't no rule says a player can't be their own sprite.
There is, though. Well, I guess none of the rules are really written down. They're all just sort of imposed by actual limitations of the world. So we'll see how this plays out. I super don't remember what the consequences are of her self-prototyping. We'll
find out together.
Wonderful. Another consequence of Aradia prototyping herself along with the frog head is that she ribbits spontaneously.
Mm-hmm. And she has like frog hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cute.
Then the action text says, "Be the huge bitch," which is a callback to blah blah huge bitch.
Right.
Which is just a
byline.
It's a throwaway joke.
Yeah.
The huge bitch is Spider-Girl. It's Vriska.
Vriska Circuit.
Again, finally, I wrote her name. I normally don't accidentally write characters' names as I'm writing my notes. Like, I'm usually pretty on top of, in my brain, who we have met yet and who we haven't. But I wrote her name so many times this week before we met her. So many times.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I then backspaced it because I know that Alex sees my notes. Well, and because, like, I would confuse myself if I read the notes as I was doing this podcast, and I had her name in there, but I wasn't supposed to say it yet. Anyways, Vriska, she really likes Flarp. Her whole room is full of three things. Flarp, broken 8 balls, and spider webs. That's it.
Yeah. So, in her accident, she lost her vision 8-fold. And she tries to replicate that by using magic 8 balls. But she smashes them in frustration. And so there's 8-ball corpses all over her floor.
Yeah, and she, like, steps on a D8 or a D4, I think. And I'm like, same. But with Legos. As a child. A lot.
Yeah. Right, yeah. And she's like, oh, I'm so unlucky. Keep stepping on these D4s.
Yeah, her luck, like, sucks. Like, luck is understood to be very, very real, like, and relevant to these characters, so, like, her luck is really bad, and that's important. Well, it's partly important because her strength specific is dice.
Mm-hmm. And so, good rolls will, like, unleash magic attacks on your enemies.
Right.
And bad rolls, I guess, will not.
Yeah, or they can damage you and, like, backfire.
Mm.
And so she's talking about how dangerous it is. So it's bad luck to, like, smash these 8 balls, and she's essentially addicted to, like, smashing them all the time. It's, like, her anger response lately.
Mm-hmm.
And so her luck is terrible, which means, like, she's boned if she has to fight her. So, like, that's partly why she's being so manipulative, is because if she has to actually, like, fight someone herself, like, she will probably die.
Right.
So another couple things that we learn about her are, we learn about her Lucis, right? Her Lucis is very demanding.
Yeah, her Lucis only eats young troll flesh.
Yep.
Which means that she has to orchestrate the deaths of other kids to feed her Lucis.
So, yeah. So that's important. That's an important piece of information.
She's like a habitual murderer.
But, like, okay, so here's the thing. She's like, evil. She's, like, a bad person, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, she's a mean, bad, manipulative... Murderer, super evil person. But, like, we understand, like, it's not completely arbitrary. Like, this is why. It's not justified exactly, but it's for a very concrete reason, which is that, like, literally this monster will go on a huge rampage and potentially, like, abandon her to the elements or whatever, probably wreak a bunch of havoc if she does not feed it dead children. So, like, troll society sure is violent, I guess is really all I'm getting at. Like, why...
Yeah.
Why would you assign that to be someone's guardian? Like, how is that not going to turn them into a horrible monster? Except probably by troll society standards, it's actually very excellent preparation.
Right, yeah.
So that's why Vriska is so homicidal, is because she sort of has to be. But she certainly doesn't need to enjoy it nearly so much as she does.
Mm-hmm. She also, we find out that when she gets worked up, she starts putting more and more 8s in places that don't quite work phonetically.
Yeah.
Which is relatable. I do that a lot. Just as kind of like jokes.
You just throw 8s in there?
Like if it can replace a vowel sound. Like...
Oh yeah, I get that. I notice how you do that all the time when you're
like
upset.
the word, like the word table. Table.
I can't... Oh, okay, are you being sarcastic?
No, I do that a lot.
I've never seen you do that. I freaking follow you on Twitter.
I feel it. I feel like I do it a lot. Or I don't, like, do it often, but I do it. I have done it several times.
I'm going to take your word for it, because I am not an observant person. But I do also want to mention that, because this is actually very important, it's a little throwaway detail, but this is super important. Remember this name. Well, it's not exactly super plot important, but it's a thematic element that will come back later on. So her Flarp character, because it is like role-playing in there, it's like D&D. And so her character is Marquise Spinneret Mindfang, and she is a pirate.
She's also, like, overpowered. She's like a Mary Sue character.
Yep.
Because she has all the levels. She has like 32,000 confirmed kills. And Vriska's like, oh, well, I wish I could be this character. She's so cool. Wait a second, I am her. Because it's literally just her.
It's literally just her in like a pirate coat and
right.
A robot arm.
But she already has a robot arm.
Right.
So it's just her in a pirate coat.
Right. But she... that's a spoiler. Can't say anything else about that. But we'll talk more next week about the arm in the eye. Then she steps on a D4. We learn about her dice. And then... So, you know how... If you're not reading the comic, you don't necessarily know about this, but a lot of times if a character is getting contacted by someone via chat, it'll be drawn as a white pixelated chat balloon with their face or some symbol that represents them inside of it. And Vriska has to, quote-unquote, deal with this guy, and his chat balloon is blank.
Yeah.
Which is a little ominous.
It is. And his text is plain white. He has no handle, and he has no typing quirk.
Yeah, it's super eerie. He has no handle, so his text is just... We've not seen that from any other character. It just appears in line,
right.
And, she makes a snarky comment to him about, how thrilled she is that she has to highlight all of his text again, and the reader also, the background of the page is light gray, and you have to highlight the whole thing to read it. And what's happening in this conversation is he's giving as good as she can't. She can dish it out, but she can't take it. Essentially, he's being insufferable and manipulative, and you sort of can't win with him because he's ruthless.
Mm-hmm.
But in an entirely masterminded way, in as many, to the extent that Vriska is, manic and, impassioned and excitable and frenetic about her being manipulative and chiding people, this guy is, very, very, precise and reserved and matter of fact and still totally insufferable, and Vriska super can't handle it.
Yeah. He says, just straight up, that he's been playing her like a fiddle. He compares her to an insect, which, it's better.
Right, with the implication is that she's known all along, or he's at least been telling her all along that she's being manipulated, and she just won't, she's sort of refused to accept it and still won't. Or he's put her in a position where she kind of has no choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really clear how that relationship came about. Did he put her in a position where she really had no choice, or he kind of also implies that she was very easy to manipulate because her temperament is very predictable? I think he uses the line, vicious and predictable like an insect. If you turn a swarm of wasps on a crowd, the outcome is certain. Which is a badass line that I really like. He calls her, he says she has an unpleasant, simplistic temperament. And remember that her whole thing, we didn't say this, but her whole thing is she can mind control people that are impressionable. Mm-hmm. That she understands their weaknesses and she can sort of get in that way. And he's literally doing that to her. He's literally manipulating her in the same way, perhaps not even using mind control. And she just can't deal. He says, "This is the last time I'll contact you. I want to forgive you for your transgression." We don't know what the transgression was. And I think you will see, if this goes well, you'll see your luck turn around. You won't have such bad luck anymore. And also, tons of bad stuff are about to happen and it's all your fault. But there's a silver lining, but you are not very lucky and you probably won't live long enough to see it. So, lots of foreshadowing.
Right. Yeah, it's a weird page.
It's a super weird page. Yeah.
So, this person, to me, seems like a completely different class of being from the trolls and the kids.
Okay. I can't confirm or deny. I'm just going to let Alex theorize.
Sure. Because, like, he doesn't operate by the same rules. And he seems to be kind of, like, mentally outclassing everyone we've met so far.
As far as we can tell, do you mean, like, because Vriska seems to be outclassing everyone else?
No. Well, she doesn't. Everyone knows exactly what she's doing. No, I just mean that, like, he's very certain of outcomes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, much more so than any other character we've met.
Yeah, he seems to know exactly what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't seem to grandstand about it.
No, not at all.
He's just very matter of fact.
Yes. But incredibly pedantic.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's rattled by that.
Yeah, to the point where she's too demoralized. She's been taken down too many pegs to even smash her 8-ball, and instead she decides to engage with one of her friends who's trying to contact her.
Mm-hmm. It's GA.
Yeah.
And GA asks Vriska if her Lucis is dead. And Vriska says, no, why would you say that? And GA is like, oh, well, it's because mine's dead.
Yeah, and we see her have the first, like, either, like, hostile... That's it. This is the first time...
Vriska?
Yeah, Vriska reacts... This is the first time we've seen Vriska have a reaction that's not hostility. And instead to say, like... She actually just says, like, oh no, like, I'm sorry, like, she seemed cool, I was hoping to meet her. She's still a huge child about it. She's like, that's a cool consolation prize. That's a... GA says, oh, maybe you can still meet her, and which I think she means as, like, I'll prototype her, which Vriska is not on board with that yet. She doesn't necessarily know that that's a thing that you can do, which kind of tells you how clued in she really isn't about what's truly going on here. But she says, oh, that's a great consolation prize. I can meet a big, cool, dead mother grub.
Right. So, yeah, it turns out that GA's cool kind of, like, moth larva Lucis was actually a mother grub.
Yeah.
A virgin, non-reproducing one.
Right. She abdicated the job of mother grub, which is interesting because, like, are they the same species as the mother grub? Like,
exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
I think there might be I think it's like a symbiosis thing.
Maybe. I mean, they have the same horns.
Yeah.
Same skulls. Like, we've seen the giant skull.
I bet you they're related in this, like, it's like, imagine if, like, humans and a different species of early hominid, like, developed some kind of weird symbiotic relationship.
I don't think so. I think they're the same species. I think it's a polymorphic thing. Like,
but, like, so then how is
like
that?
She's fed royal honey, and that makes her develop completely differently.
Yeah, but how is she a Lucis then? Like, that doesn't make any...
Well, are all Lucises, like, confirmed to be the same species?
That's true. You know, they're not. I think I was thinking of that. It's easy to think of them that way, and it kind of makes sense to think of them that way.
Right, they're like a class of...
Oh, no! Nope! Luci are explicitly one species. Lucis naturae. We are given their scientific name. So, maybe this is a weird exception. That's never really explained. So, you can theorize about this however you like.
Sure.
I also want to point out that I don't remember if this was ever made explicit, but the skull that was on the Doomsday scale was a mother grub skull.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
Okay, yeah. I thought that was cool. That's it. Then they have a really interesting conversation where we like, Vriska actually gets some characterization beyond, like, huge, manipulative, like, awful, mean person. Mm-hmm. She is actually pretty self-conscious about, like, seeming dumb and having things go over her head, and she seems to have a ton of respect for GA, because GA keeps coming through with theories about what's going on, and Vriska's like, that totally, you know, idiot girl has another question, and GA keeps being like, I don't think I understood what I said either.
Mm.
GA also calls her dangerous.
Yeah, she says, like, you are dangerous. That doesn't mean you're not important. Dangerous people can be important.
Ooh, you cut out for a second. What did you say? You are dangerous?
You're dangerous, but that doesn't mean you aren't important.
Right. She says, I want to read what she says, actually, because it's kind of important. Vriska's immediate response is to say, can it, which she thinks is funny, but she says, it's okay to be dangerous. Lots of people are, and dangerous people can be really important, which seems sort of obvious to me, but whatever. Maybe even the most important sometimes, but it just means there's got to be someone around to keep an eye on them. And if not me, then who? Everyone has an important job to do. And those last couple lines are a callback to Nepeta's relationship with CT, Centaur's testicle.
Mm-hmm.
But this relationship seems a lot more healthy.
Yeah, for sure.
In as much as any relationship involving Vriska is healthy.
Right. Yeah, GA is, like, on top of the situation, whereas Nepeta is...
Either way is fine.
Is, kind of not in control.
Not at all, no.
Yeah.
At the same time, so GA is not necessarily in control of this situation either. She's just not also under the control of this situation. And
right, exactly. Like, she knows, like, she knows what's up, basically.
Yeah, like, Vriska gets angry with her and is like, okay, so if you're keeping an eye on me, why don't you stop me from doing bad things? Which is really interesting. Mm-hmm. So what is it that she thinks is bad that she's done? Does she actually regret all of, like, the murders that she does? Or is this more referring to, like, the transgression that we don't know about yet that has to do with the white text guy? Like, what bad stuff is she worried about?
I read it as, like, things that cause her harm, like self-damaging things.
That's
like
true.
stepping on dice.
Yeah. That's fair. Which GA responds to with, like, if I actually tried to stop you, you'd consider me an enemy and you wouldn't listen to me anymore. So I'm more useful if I just nag you. Right.
Which is really strange because later on, kind of as a throwaway gag, we learned that enemies and friends are the same word in Trollese.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bit of inconsistency.
It's a ton of inconsistency. In my notes, I have a whole thing about how I could probably literally do an entire special episode about, like, that stupid throwaway line, because, like, it sort of makes sense in the general thing that they're trying to get at, which is, like, boy, troll relationships sure are antagonistic. Like, yes, but at the same time, like, friend and enemy meaning the same thing doesn't compute with just how language is used in this comic. Like, friend and enemy are explicitly treated as meaning different things by the trolls.
Right.
Speaking to other trolls.
It's kind of like, oh, Dothraki has no word for thank you.
Whatever.
Like, it doesn't, like, even if that's technically true, it doesn't mean that they don't have the emotion.
Right.
Of gratitude.
Right, exactly. Like, and yeah, it's just bizarre. I really seriously could do a whole episode about it. If
maybe one day if I can't do an episode.
Yeah, something like that. So Vriska and GA end their conversation. Vriska just signs off without saying anything, and then logs back in to, like, berate herself for letting GA get the last word. Yeah. God. So then she sort of stomps off downstairs to go check on her Lucis, and she's thinking, God, there can't be a single kid on this planet with a more high-maintenance Lucis than mine, which is really funny because she's super wrong. Y'all have no way of knowing this, but I don't think it's a huge spoiler to, like, just foreshadow at you. She's super wrong. Like, super hilariously wrong.
I mean, not knowing that, I don't blame her for thinking, because this is a very high-maintenance Lucis if it needs constant sacrifices.
It's very high maintenance. We do get to see it next up. It's bigger than her house.
It's very big.
It's just a regular spider, well, like with a toothy mouth, but it's bigger than her house, which is not a small house.
Considerably. Like, it's
like twice the size of her house.
It's like I don't even know, like, what you would compare it to. It's like the size of an apartment building.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Like a big, like, it's the size of one of those apartment complexes that's like 4 towers.
Yeah.
It's like that big. And so for scale, Vriska's house and Centaur's Testicles' house are 2 towers on 2 spires with like a valley in between, and the valley, it's like the pit really is where Spider Mom lives.
Yeah, and it's just kind of just big enough for her.
Right. And above her is, so one of the interests that we didn't mention of Vriska's before is she's an apocalypse buff and she builds doomsday devices.
Right.
So she's got one that she's been working on for a mysterious member of the aquatic elite. And it's still a work in progress. She gets a lot of help from Centaur's Testicle on it because he's good with machines. And it's suspended by chains over, like, the pit where her Lucis lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's important later. And so Vriska and Robot Guy are neighbors. And now that we are...
And quote-unquote, as long as we're in the neighborhood.
As long as we're in the neighborhood, we might as well introduce Equius.
Equius Zahak.
He's awful. He's real
Zahak.
bad. Zahak, yeah. Their last name never come up again, so, like, who cares?
Yeah. Yes, Equius sucks. But it's really funny. He wants to be an archer eradicator, but he is too strong to shoot an arrow because he snaps the bows in half whenever he tries.
Can I just say that the words that you wrote were, he breaks every bow he tries to arrow?
Yeah, bow and arrow.
Oh, you bow and arrow.
Not really.
I know.
It's the other way around.
I know, but I thought that was funny.
Thanks.
Yeah.
He's a very strong boy, is the thing.
He is, in fact, freakishly strong. And his Lucis Arthur, or Orthur...
Arthur is Arthur with a bunch of extra letters.
Yeah.
Well, 2 extra letters. In, like, a jokingly, like, French kind of way.
Yeah.
It's fine. What's wrong with it?
Like, it's just, like, hard to pronounce, really.
Arthur,
okay. That's fine. We already talked about his posters, which are priceless masterpieces painted in the oldest and most respected Alternian tradition of nude muscle beast portraits.
Mm-hmm.
He's very angry all the time, and the way that he manages that, which I actually thought was one of his less creepy, like, ways of dealing with things, is like, if you know that you have a ton of pent-up rage, one thing you could do is become a terribly violent person towards other living beings. You could, like, I don't know, do dog fighting or something, but he just builds robots and beats the shit out of them.
Right.
Which is, like, fine.
Yeah, in cage matches, it's hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, like,
so
it's okay.
Yeah, so he actually has 3 strifes specify. One is a broken bow, which is what all his bows turn into. The other one's bows, but they're impossible to use. Kind. Yeah, it's 1/2 bow kind. And then regular bows, but he can't use them because they'll turn into 1/2 bow kind. And his 3rd specibus is just fist.
Fist kind. It's not literally just fist. That would be funny, though.
It's fist kind.
For practical use. Arthur brings him a glass of Lucis milk from his own udders.
Yeah, how does he milk himself? Don't worry about it. His arms aren't that long. Don't worry about it.
It's okay, it's fine. He kind of looks like he's made of, like, squishy rubber, so maybe he's just very stretchy.
He does. He is.
Equius tries to give him a gentle pat. We later learn that Arthur's species is the strongest Lucis species on the planet, which seems absurd given that we just saw a Lucis the size of a house, but whatever. we'll take their word for it.
Right. Yeah. He does have big biceps, I guess.
Yeah, he's got a 6-pack and like very defined pecs. I should mention.
Yeah, and nipples.
And nipples to go with his udders.
Exactly.
So many like secondary sex characteristics flying around here, left and right. Equius tries to give him a gentle pat and leaves a hand-shaped, like, he gives him a 5-star, basically, on his head.
Yeah.
And the narration just says, seriously, he's like a soft summer peach. Which I actually, like, this exchange is, like, I guess the domesticity of it's, like, weirdly touching for me.
It is. Yeah, it was strange. And kind of the most humanizing thing about CT so far.
Yeah, it's so like this is kind of what I was saying about this comic. Like, as lazy as the writing is sometimes, and as focused on like machinations and like plot driven elements as it is, the characterization is really good when it wants to be.
Yeah, I guess like the thing that is frustrating is the device of introducing characters as complete monsters and then humanizing them, which kind of like draws attention away from the fact that they are still complete monsters.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, you start with them. We're going to see this with a couple of characters where we start with them at their worst and then watch them evolve.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, like, evolving is fine. Like, starting at their worst and then learning to be better is fine. It just feels like, I guess just personally, I feel kind of, like, tricked, I guess, when, like, I see this domestic scene with this person that I absolutely hated, and then I suddenly feel like, oh, okay, like, he's nice to this person. And then I look back and I'm like, wait a second, I legitimately hated him for a good reason before I read this, and I just kind of forgot about that for a second. And I feel like I've been tricked by the text.
That's legit. I think that's absolutely like what's going on. Like, and I think I agree that it's disingenuous to the point of like poor creative integrity. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a strong argument to be made that like that you shouldn't do that as a writer. I think it's unfair to your reader, and like it kind of it sort of implies on some level like a forgiveness of the character's bad actions because you're then painting them in this like tender or positive or like at least human light.
Yeah, and it's not to say that like characters who do horrible things can't be like redeemed or like even just empathized with.
Right.
It just kind of is like a really shorthand and lazy, I guess, just lazy way to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's kind of what you're getting at. It's not earned, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to
I think that's
talk about this at length.
I think we've already talked about it at length, and we've sort of
more length.
We'll talk about it much more as we move forward, and I think I'm interested in how our viewpoints on this evolve.
Mm-hmm. So he's drinking this milk from his butler, and
his butler who is his Lucis,
right?
And he
who's the best butler?
He's the best.
And he smashes he destroys the glass in his hand
as usual,
and throws it on the floor.
Yeah. Then there's like some throwaway stuff where we actually learn about his strife specibus, and then then we're reminded that the next thing that happens from this chronological perspective is his really unsettling manipulative chat with Nepeta, where he just like shuts her down when she wants to go play this game with her friends, and he's like, "You won't because they are of lower caste, and I'm not okay with it."
Right. And he says like he considers her a friend. Like he's like, oh, like go talk to your friend.
He says that he considers her his friend, and then he's going to talk to someone else. And the reason that the linguistic, what they're about to say is the in troll language, the word for friend is exactly the same as the word for enemy. Because he's about to go talk to someone who he talks to every day. He finds talking to him, like, comforting, and yet he hates him.
Mm-hmm.
Which means we're about to have a really super uncomfortable conversation with Gamzee.
So this, like, I started out super uncomfortable with this, because it is. But it went so, like, deep into the bit that it just became hilarious.
It, like, devolves into really confused, one-sided sexting.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Okay,
it's not explicit. It's Alex.
It's just like
clue us in.
So the gist is that Gamzee is actually in the caste system that Equius subscribes to. Subscribes to. Gamzee is actually, like, higher up even than Equius.
Right.
And so it infuriates Equius that Gamzee doesn't act the way he should and doesn't treat lower people with disdain. And he actually wants Gamzee to treat him with disdain because that affirms the hierarchy.
Which ends up being, like, this weird... There's sort of, like it's, like, non-sexual, like...
It's non-sexual,
DS
but it's, like... Yeah,
role-playing. But it's really super creepy because Gamzee doesn't have a fucking clue what's going on, and it's just like sort of like he's very amiable about the whole thing.
So what happens first is Equius is like, "You will stop talking like that," and Gamzee's like, "I will? Whoa! Can you predict the future?"
Yeah,
which is how he talks.
Yeah.
And then Equius is immediately like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to order you around. I can't speak to you like that. Like, please, like, berate me for that." And then he just kind of devolves into, like, begging Gamzee to, like, boss him around and, like, speak down to him. And just kind of, like, not literally, but kind of metaphorically getting off on it. Like, Gamzee's like, did that work? Like, is that what you wanted? And he's like, yes.
It's so gross. He's sweating. He's like, he always has a towel over his shoulder, Equius, because he's very, very sweaty, on top of being very, very strong. And it's like, oh man, it's the cringiest thing. It's super cringy.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but an actual thing that I want to, like, think about a little bit here. This episode's gonna run super long. Do we maybe want to cut this one in half?
No, it's okay. We can cut, like, 5 minutes from your conversation and typing, looking for stuff.
Oh, that's true, yeah, a bunch of it. I think easily, like, 20 minutes of this call have been pre-episode, me looking stuff up, and then my parents. So, yeah, that's fair. All right, so we're sort of coming up to the end of the thing anyway. I guess I'll try and breeze through this point really quickly, but I was kind of wondering, like, on this reread, where does Equius actually get this caste fetishism from? Because there aren't schools or families that can, like, enculturate people. Or maybe there are schools, but we don't see them. And so my hypothesis is, like, these kids have access to the internet and, like, they have access to tons of media. And so my theory is it's, like, especially the caste system is present if you decide to engage with it at this point in history. Like, it's not actively superimposed. And so, of course, if that caste system favors you so, you know, uncomfortable white supremacist notes here. But if that caste system favors you personally, you're going to gravitate towards, you know, that grand cultural history or whatever in a way that, like, you don't see, like, Karkat or Solix talking about, you know, old...
Unless you're high out of your mind, like Gamzee.
Yeah, exactly. So then...
But actually, an interesting thing also is, like, Equius has a huge crush on Aradia.
That's super important, yes.
Who is red blood, which is apparently the lowest. But he's confounded by her because she comports herself very ladylike. And he is like, why do I feel this way about such a lowly peasant? And he's, like, reveling in the lasciviousness of it.
Like, yeah, how like, illicit it is. And it's, like, it's gross.
It's hilarious, though. Like, it's... Yeah, it's gross.
Then he has a conversation with Vriska, which is, like, their exchange is really funny. Basically, like, he's slightly higher caste than her, and so he, like, won't tolerate her, like, shit, but he just, like, he can be so deadpan, and, like, it's really funny, because it's, like, Vriska is so, like, she's like a small, excited dog, and it's, like, a small, excited dog, like, running into a wall a bunch of times, and, like, bouncing off and, like, flipping over, but, like, at the same time trying to be all, like, cunning, and, like, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, and it's really funny that, like, both of them are saying, like, oh, like, you know, we're gonna work together, we're gonna take the leadership from Aradia. Neither of us have any, like, ulterior motives or, like, other plans, right? Nope. Not me. No, me neither. So we're all good, right? We're all good. But both obviously know that the other is, like, not telling the truth there.
Yeah, so there's a ton of plots going on in here, and most of them aren't super important, so I won't really delve into them, but the most important thing is, so we learned from some narration before that we didn't mention on the podcast, but from some narration when Aradia enters the game, that Equius has a gift for her that he's going to have to deliver in person because they don't have enough grist to alchemize it. So he's actually going to have to use the second gate on his world once he enters the game and bring it to her in person. Mm-hmm. What Vriska thinks is going on is that the gift was her idea, to sort of get into Aradia's good graces, and whereas Equius has the exact same intentions of using it to get into her good graces, Vriska thinks that it's her idea. She's just contracting with Equius to, like, help her pull it off, and what's about to happen is Equius is going to deliver it to her, like, before anybody enters the game. He's just going to, you know, jump across the pit, however he's going to do that, and bring it to her. It's, he then goes back into his shop, and he's, like, about to go check out the gift, and the narration informs us that you, of course, have no intention of delivering it to your neighbor as promised. You naturally will double-cross your accomplice, just as you assume she has plans to double-cross you. You assume she is assuming the same of you. Business as usual for Blue Bloods.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Let us remind you also that Aradia knows exactly what's going on with all of this.
Yeah, she just doesn't care.
Yeah, she I think she's aware that Equius is ultimately going to make the power grab, and she doesn't care because she wants to enter the game second anyway.
Yeah.
So, then we find out what the gift is, which is super disturbing.
Mm-hmm. So it's a robot Aradia body. With
blue-blooded makeup. Whatever that
right.
means. Like, the same color as Equius's stuff.
Yeah, so it. I'm not sure who knows that she's a ghost and who doesn't know.
Yeah, so that was my thing, too. This is meant to be, like, a prosthetic body for her, since she's a ghost. So how does he know that she's a ghost? I don't remember how he knows that, so... Either this is an inconsistency, or he's got info, and we don't know how he has it yet.
Maybe he thinks he's building her, like, a dream bot or something?
Maybe. I have no idea.
That's all I can think of.
Yeah. So then he dips the robot to, like, kiss her, and there's this, like, sappy monologue, and it's like, but it's really disgusting. Like, your heart will pump no more of that despicable red sludge. You have been given a new heart. You can be taught the ways of the class you were always meant for. For the first time in your meaningless life, you have met a man with true compassion, and, like,
yeah. And then he glances aside and sees another robot staring blankly at him, and he's like, "What are you looking at?" And punches it out the wall.
Punches it through a window, where it explodes over, like, the chasm between his and Vriska's house.
Which dislodges the Doomsday device.
So the Doomsday device is broken. Remember, it was a work in progress. It doesn't actually detonate. This is done, actually, I should note, it's very excellent and suspenseful. It plays out over a number of panels, but there's no point recapping that to you. So yeah, it shorts out, but it shakes a chain loose and, like, whacks into Equius's house, which knocks a bunch of rock out of his spire, crushes Vriska's Lucis, and presumably rattles his house enough to shake Arthur out a window somewhere as well, because the last panel that we're going to talk about this week is our Thor plummeting down into the pit.
Yeah, yep. So very suspenseful cliffhanger. Literally.
Whoa!
And also in this sequence there is a link to what seems to be a Midnight Crew and sleuth
Problem
guy.
Sleuth. So it's not actually
Superman.
a crossover. I think this went down as part of like a special donation initiative during Problem Sleuth. And the Midnight Crew are originally from Problem Sleuth.
Oh, okay, right,
yeah.
right.
So, and it's all about, like, what the Doomsday device actually is, which I found super interesting, and, like, the graphics are kind of cool, so we'll have a link to it in that, as mentioned, on our Tumblr
I had no
post.
idea what was going on.
When you read it?
I just, like, looked at the page, I didn't know what was going on, and so I continued with the real comic.
Oh, okay. It's fun. It's designed not to actually have any impact on the Problem Sleuth storyline, so you can parse it perfectly fine. It's just like a random throwaway. Like, wouldn't it be cool if there was this device that has to do with attacks? It's fun to read. I'll include it in the as mentioned.
Nice.
And
that's our reading.
That's the end of the show, except for the questions.
It's not the end of the show.
It's not the end of the show. While Alex queues up the questions, I will tell you how to ask us them, which is if you want to ask us a question, go to hamsteakpodcast.tumblr.com and send us an ask, or mention us on Twitter where we are at hamsteakpodcast, or if it's too long, you could send a DM on Twitter, or if you think there's a spoiler, this is important, are you paying attention? If you think that your ask has a spoiler, that you can ask those questions. I will, like, filter them through my, like, spoiler negating vision. But you gotta send it to me personally. I'm Brickchip, BRICKCHIP on Tumblr and Twitter. Obviously don't send me a mention on Twitter, because everyone can see those. Send me a DM, or send me an ask. We got some question this week, or no?
We do. Our first question today comes from Tumblr user, 2 Hearts 1 Man, who says...
that's a Doctor Who reference.
Could be. So I just recently got caught up to the most recent episode, and I just want to say I love hearing you two talk individually. I love hearing how you two individually interpret Homestuck, and the off-topic conversations you guys have. As a rereader, I love listening to all the little tidbits I'd forgotten and learning of stuff that I'd managed to miss. Anyway, my questions are, what is an obscure way to figure out if someone is a Homestuck? And if you were a troll, describe what type of Lucis you'd have. So when I got this question, I immediately thought, obviously a dog. I'd have a dog Lucis. And then I immediately realized that Becquerel is a Lucis type thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I hadn't made that connection before.
Aw. Okay. Well, okay, I also want to say thank you for saying a bunch of nice stuff, and I'm glad you're enjoying the podcast. And thanks for listening and everything. What would my Lucis be? Probably a horse, honestly, because, like, as a child, I was, like, big horse girl. Super big horse girl.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Because you know how, like, every girl is either, like, a horse girl or a wolf girl?
Right.
I was a horse girl. I made...
Nice.
Well, as a horse, and, like, especially, like, a unicorn girl, at one point, I was 8 years old. I remember this very specifically. I was 8, and I spent a whole day pawing through... This was before Google image search was particularly good, so I was pawing through the Microsoft clip art gallery for every picture of a unicorn I could find.
Oh my God.
And I put them all on one, like, big page in PowerPoint with, like, a pretty, like, purple background. And then I got all excited when my dad came home because he brought home that, like, iron-on transfer paper, and I was gonna print it out on the transfer paper and make a unicorn t-shirt. And I did, and I printed it out, and my dad ironed it on, and he turned the iron on way too hot, and it came out all brown.
Oh no.
I was so sad. I was like, I can't wear this.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a sad, good story.
Thanks.
Mine would be a dog, but specifically, when I was like 14, I think, I used to have this character, which was basically like this coyote spirit. Like, it was like the like the protector of this wasteland setting that I was making a story in.
Oh man, we've talked about this. This was your like seeing eye spirit.
No, that was a original OC copyright Alex 2014 or something.
Oh, okay.
This is like something from way in the past.
But I thought that this inspired that.
No. That was a little fox.
Okay.
That like has a tail that wraps around your arm and like tugs you in the direction you want to go.
Okay.
This is a coyote, and it's like big. It's like as tall as an elephant, but it's like very like skinny. Mm-hmm. And it has like big, like pupilless slit eyes that like pierce through the fog.
Okay. Sounds dope.
Yeah, that's it. That's what this is.
That's super cool. I hope you don't have to like feed it human beings or something.
I don't think so.
That's a good question. And then low-key ways to find out if someone is a homestuck.
Say, I like your shoelaces.
Yeah. No, okay, so the ways that I usually find out are, wear your Homestuck shirt. That's actually how I made one of my best friends in college. Like, I met a whole group of friends by, this sounds so lame, but I wore a Homestuck shirt into the dining hall one of, like, the first days of school, and I was busy, like, I didn't get along with people on my floor. I was like, I'm not making any friends here, this sucks. And, this girl, like, and props to this girl for being super friendly, but she came up to me and she was like, I like your shirt. And she noticed that I had, like, cut the sleeves, and she was like, did you do that yourself? And I was like, yes. And we, like, chatted for a while. And then she went and grabbed her friend, and I talked to him for a while, and then I, like, hung out with their friends, and then I ended up, like, subletting from them briefly, and, like, I don't know, we still chat, like, they're good people, and I met them through my Homestuck shirt. They're not actually really Homestucks, though. So that's sort of a side note, but, like, I don't know, Homestuck brings people together. That's a fun story I like to tell. Honestly, like, the shirts are nice. And they're really classy looking. They just have, like, a plain symbol on them, so, like, it's not, like, walking around with, like, a big doofy, like, it's not like you're wearing a big sign on your head that says, I am a geek, to, like, anybody, which is kind of nice. People probably just assume that it's a band symbol if you're into being low-key about that kind of stuff, which there's nothing wrong with not wanting to be low-key about that stuff. You can just kind of, like, there's a bunch of, like, I don't know, sometimes you'll hear people, like, drop, like, a figure of speech that gets used in this comic a lot that, like, worms its way into your subconscious. Like, a lot of times I'll think of the construction, like, the X has the Y, but, like, has... The X, right. Like, the big man has the ball. Just, like, or, like, little things like that are just, like, it keeps happening. I don't know. Mostly, though, like, I don't know, go on the internet. Or, like, just ask them. Like, if you know that they read a lot of, like, online comics, be like, do you read Homestuck? Like, you could just ask a person. It's okay.
Yeah, I get the, like, the idea behind this ask. Like, when I was in, like, late high school, early... like, first year of college, I would, like, want to know if people were, like, nerd fighters or
Aww.
What have you. But for the most part, I think just, like, get to know people, and if you bring up Homestuck and they know what it is and they've read it, cool. And if they haven't, maybe it's something you can introduce them to. I think, like, choosing your friends based on what their fandoms are is, like, kind of a backwards way to go about it.
Strong agree. Yeah, so that's another thing, is that, so I did happen to meet some really great people because I happened to be wearing a Homestuck shirt, but they're not actually very strongly engaged with Homestuck. Like, they, like, used to read it and, like, would catch up occasionally and weren't really involved. I did know some people on campus who wore Homestuck shirts, and, like, I knew were Homestucks and, like, were pretty vocal about it, and they were, like... we were not friend compatible whatsoever at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, choosing people via fandom is not good. But also, you would be very surprised if you just meet people through however you meet them and they get to know them. You often will end up liking a lot of the same stuff because it's all affinity grouping and.
Yeah. If you really do want to, like, obscurely figure out, like, if someone's a Homestuck, you could wear gray face paint and, like, put candy corn in your hair. And then, if they get it, they're probably Homestuck. And if they don't, they're a normie. They're a prep.
They're a muggle. They're a prep. God.
Our next question comes from the shows with the feels and the stuff on Tumblr, who says, you thought that the Pollux caster thing was it. That's just a scratch on the surface. Did you know that Nepeta is a type of catnip?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I know that there's really complicated etymology behind all of the trolls' names. I just don't care.
Yeah,
not to dismiss you, it's interesting. I'm not usually recounting it because it's not plot relevant, and we're always pressed for time.
Sure, I think it's fun. I didn't know the Nepeta thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool to like think about what each of the troll names are meant to be, because there is obviously thought put into them.
There is, and if you're okay with spoilers, look them up on the MSPA wiki, which I can't recommend enough, as long as you either have read it before or don't care about spoilers. There's like detailed breakdowns of all of their name meanings and origins and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Our last question comes from Anonymous on Tumblr, who says, I hear Alex doesn't like ICP. Boy, howdy, will he have a fun time further in the comic. I don't know if Lydia has read that far, but if so, then she knows how 2017 will turn out.
Oh, no.
I just want to say on the record, I've never said that I didn't like ICP. I'm just, like, not familiar with them very much. I'm not an active listener of their music.
Yeah, I mean, they're super cringy, but, like, in kind of a fun way.
Yeah, I find the camaraderie of the Juggalo community endearing, possibly, or charming, if it's not, like, people doing bad stuff, which I don't know if Juggalos really do that. That might just be a stereotype.
I don't think Juggalos generally do bad stuff. I've mostly heard about Juggalos being, like, good and supportive people, actually.
Yeah.
So, I knew some Juggalos in high school. They were all wonderful, sweet people.
How dare you slander me?
Basically. How dare you? And that's the end. We're real people.
Is that our episode title? How dare you?
It's a little short. It's a little too on the nose. I think we're gonna have to dig a little deeper.
Figure out something else. Yeah.
It's gotta be a 3-word episode title. It's just like, unless it's got a lot of weight to it. Like I thought, Hypercube? No, better. It's a good one.
So yes or no? Do you know what 2017 alludes to?
I mean,
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the show, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thanks. Oh, find us on the internet. I'm Brickchip, BRICKCHIP, like the word brick, then the word chip, on Tumblr and on Twitter. And where can people find you?
I'm Leaf Crunch on Tumblr and Crunchleaf on Twitter.
It's true. It's all true. And we are Hamsteak Podcast on Tumblr and on Twitter. And ask us your questions, and episodes come out on Monday, and we don't say this stuff normally, but I'm trying to, like, start saying it. We're in the iTunes store. You can subscribe to things there. You can rate stuff there.
It's true. It's all true.
It, like, you don't have to, but, like, if you like it, you could. That's it.
Yeah, and we also have a Libsyn page if you don't want to use iTunes.
Yep.
It's hamsteakpodcast.libsyn.com, and that's Liberated Syndication, LABSYN.
Yep.
.com for commercial.
Because this is a business. This is a very serious, monetized operation. No.
No. No, we do this out of the goodness, or the...
The goodness? Or the blatant narcissism? Or just, like really, really, like, insatiable need to poke and prod at minutia? Like...
Ness of our hearts.
Yeah.
All right, bye.
Bye!